is S.o.O agreement has led to so many killings and death and obstruction of the state administration, central administration. The question mark is where is I will speak it in English. The reason being is that I want the other Indians or whoever is are thinking that S.o.O is fine. That individual or the government, I want them to understand it because I am not trying to speak as a Maitai. Because if we deduce this particular Manipur issue as is between two tribal group, one majority minority, then we lose the fundamental aspect. That's the reason why I'm speaking English. Now let's go back to the basic principle. Now, whatever is done, the S.o.O agreement or whatever task is done, because it is not a law, it is a policy. That means coming under the administrative domain. Now, government, any government, irrespective of BJP or Congress or whatever government in the central government of India, they can plan based on their own philosophy as long as it's within the context of the Indian constitution. So they may say that S.o.O is in the interest of India. That's what they're claiming it. And clearly, the BJP party in the parliament has claimed in their during the first 5 years that this is the only party which is able to bring peace in the northeastern state of India until this second part, where in 2023 this crisis happened. There are a lot of reports, national news media on this basis that BJP is the only party. Now, BJP already has claimed that they have a target about bringing all these armed militias or groups who claim themselves to be whatever they so that they are brought into the mainstream. So they have a plan why they want to do, and they are still using, and they change the word called look is policy to the act is policy. And this is the way, and they claim that as far as Manipur is concerned, they thought that okay, let's do with the framework agreement and then extend it and extend it and extend the framework agreement with the NSNIM. But because of the revolt of the people of Manipur in 2001, that beyond the territory of Nagaland, that means we don't boundaries of crossing into, I mean that means crossing the boundary into Manipur was removed because of the 2001 incident where many people have died because of the firing by the Indian armed forces, because those are simply following the orders of the then Indian government. Now, coming to the S.o.O agreement, as again, now they copy the same template, they just change the name. So, suspension of operation, framework agreement, you can have a title of that particular agreement in whatever name you set, but they simply copied that into another context and they have with the cookie terrorists or they are still claiming that this is in the national interest. Why? Because some people are holding arms. Now they are trying to get into the mainstream. But fundamentally, if we ask, what does this agreement of S.o.O and fundamental framework agreement has enabled India as a country? First thing they will highlight, especially the retired army officers from the Assam Rifle or Indian Army, what they will say is that they don't kill each other. They don't kill. So when they say they don't kill as a human body count point of view, they are more referring to the service people, the servicemen and women in uniform. What about the civilian is the fundamental questions. So we need to go by the data and the database and the numbers, not by the emotions that I am doing this and that. So we need to dig down how many numbers of individuals, I mean the civilians, have died or killed because of S.o.O existence or framework agreement existence. Of course, those numbers will be covered up, but we need to see not just the number, but the severity of the situation. As far as the NSNIM framework agreement is concerned, we know a serving SDPO, SDO, that I forgot the name of the person, which is a serving officer, civil servant of Manipur government, was killed by NSNIM. Now the Indian government, because of the pressure, pick up that individual who is a senior officer in the NSNIM. Now there are many incidents which has happened where the people mean the civilian, irrespective of ethnicity, has spoken openly, written on the national newspaper as well as the local newspaper, about the impact or influence or that kind of a diktat of NSNIM in a national highway going from Manipur, there's Imphal via Nagaland to the Guwahati, and many are there. Only in specific case that we remember, as far as this the murder of this SDO or SDO, I forgot the exact particular title. We can judge. So only on one or two specific cases, only the law rule of the law is deemed to be implemented. But we have seen many other news through the archives that certain NSNIM cadres are arrested by the Manipur police because of the reasons which is termed to be illegal under the Indian law. They have been arrested from somewhere in Ukhrul or somewhere in Senapati, brought to the police station or somewhere in Imphal proper. It's in terms of the police headquarters nearby. Immediately, phone calls seems to have come from Delhi, and they are released at the night. And those things can be Googled by searching the newspaper, which is the factual info. Fast forward regarding to the suspension of operation. What has happened? Now we know in this recent, in this crisis, the SP office are burned down, DC office are burned down. They have clearly said that the elected MLA of a constituency through this suspension of operation that they have got somewhere unknown power can dictate an elected representative of a country, that is the state government, that or legislative assembly, that you cannot do this and that threats are already given. I'm talking about the cookie militants telling to the cookie MLA. Interestingly enough, that these cookie MLAs, many of them, the husband or wives are their uncles or that thing are. Either way, that means this cookie MLS does not represent the people because their own spouse, their own thing, they can claim that we have individuality, blah, blah, blah. We all know who is it. There are a lot of pictures and photos which is still available there. The armed militias are around. Now, what does it mean? It means that we have a Republic of India where we have the administrative system, the central government, state government, union territory, we have armed forces, we have police, we have electricity department, railway department, we have all this administrative structure. In this administrative structure, this is meant to run for good governance and public service so that nation exists as it is. Because of this suspension of operation and framework agreement that the government of India of the day, not talking about Congress or BJP, is thinking that it is there to not sure that make sure that killing does not happen. But the killing does not happen maybe for the Indian armed forces who were wearing uniform, but it has not stopped killing the police forces. Now, police forces or the administrative service, IAS or IPS or whatever in the police forces, at least in the administration, even coming to the kidnapping and taking ransom out of the this railway, we are making Indian railway services, that kind of thing. People can also see that all cases are there. So fundamental point is just making sure that the Indian armed forces in uniform, whether in the Indian Army or Assam Rifle or BSF or CRPF or NIA, whatever that police the armed forces uniform, if those officers or soldiers are not killed, is that only the parameter to say that suspension of operation and framework agreement is in the national interest? What if the same democracy and the freedom that Indians are proud of, saying that we got freedom from the British Empire, we have our own rule by ourselves, for the people, of the people, by the people, and we have a structure. All those structures have been cannibalized by the same policy that the Indian government introduced. If that is the case, then how is the suspension of operation and the framework agreement in the interest of India? Because then we don't need all these IAS officers and IPS officers and all these police, all these CRPF in Manipur. Why? Because they are not allowed or enabled or empowered to do their duties. That means why can't we simply have 10 organizations of Maitais, 10 organizations of Maitai Pangal, 10 organizations of Muslims and other Bengalis and Gurkhas, Nepalese, and Cookies, Nagas, whatever you name it. Let them have all their own guns and then let them have some kind of a suspension of operation with cookies, suspension of operation with good cars. Let them their own guns. Why do we need all this DC and SDPO and all the stuff? Which is suspension of operation with the myopic vision by the Indian government of the day has the feeling that this has been introduced in order to bring national security into control and India progress so that peace comes into the northeastern region of India for their game plan of Ek is policy, from the look is policy. That is what they feel it. But the problem coming with this policy, which is not a law, but a policy administrative action, is causing cancer to India. You are taking a medicine to kill a virus, but you are killing yourself at the end. And that is what exactly happening with the implementation of suspension of operation. On May 3rd, people have seen videos are there, cases are there, that the armed militias with the guns are roaming around. None of the police officials in the Chuchampur district did anything about it. No one was ever fired upon by the police on those illegal, no matter what agreement is there, it's not done. And none of these DCs and SPs and are able to do their duty. In the national highway today, Indian government, through some sources of their relevant department, is saying that they have enabled people to cross through. This is a false news. How can you discriminate one community or one Indian and another Indian? You allow it. Where has the Indian government gone? So my first point, specifically trying to say, is a very basic. A policy which is implemented under the national security plan or whatever, as far as the Northeast is concerned, particularly related to Manipur, of the framework agreement and the S.o.O agreement, needs to be removed totality or need to be reworked. The current reworking mechanism where they say that all those arms held by this Su-sign militant group will be now placed under the control of the BSF or CRPF, not with Assam Rifle Indian Army, whatever it is. That thing is not going to work. First point is the policy as far as the national security in the interest of nation may have been done with a good intention, but we have a clear-cut evidence with the factual info of the human cost as well as the financial and the brand image that has been affected. So in Manipur, it's not about Manipur, it's about India. And for that reason, neither this Su policy has worked, neither this has served the intention for which to bring the peace. Otherwise, it already caused a fire. The other aspect is already saying is that this particular agreement, what is available, modification, adaptation is incomplete. Let me come to the second main part. If the Indian government feels that Sioux agreement has to continue because those armed militias may be considered as an Indian, which we doubt, because many of them may be Myanmar is born, not even being Indian, but we will leave that for part for the moment. The question is, somebody has to be accountable. All we are asking is who is going to be accountable when things are not done in the way which it is. The immediate analogy is Governor of India of the day, at least during the Congress time, carried forward to the BJP time when Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, and then fast forward when Atal Bihari Vajpayee and other then comes in all the other stuff, signed a nuclear agreement with the United States of America so that the nuclear reactors and that electricity generation and everything could be done by the companies based in US, in India. Then the question of liability, if some kind of a nuclear disaster happen, who is going to bear the cost? And the cost was already saying that it is that company who is going to be from the outside the India. And that is the tricky point. At that time, Indian government talked about creating an insurance policy where that insurance, blah, blah. I mean, I'm not dwelling to it. That nuclear agreement, even if signed, because of that liability cost, so far in India, no US company has ever started operating and having a nuclear power plant and running and distributing in the energy market because of that liability clause. Now, for India, if nuclear disaster is going to happen because of the mis kind of a running, because it is nuclear power, they are going with the liability clause. The question here clause that the Indian government imposed to the US government, to the companies or multinational company who are trying to set up business. The question fundamentally we're asking is, if the Indian governments think that SOO agreement is in the national interest, they have signed so many terms. They say that, oh, I will abide by this, I will abide by that. There has already there in the previous agreement also. The question is, none of them has been followed. None of them has been neither on the Indian government side, which is the Assam Rifle or the Indian Armed Forces, Indian Army, neither on the cookie terrorist or militant group side. They haven't followed it. The question is, who is going to police both the cookie armed militias as well as the Indian Armed Forces for not enforcing what is written there? That is why my second point is very simple. By giving analogy is, we as an Indian, not as a Maitai, I'm asking a fundamental question: who is going to bear the accountability when disasters are happening, which we have already seen in the previous two agreement, though the terms are there, none of the parties, both the government of India as well as the cookie militant groups, have abided by. And who are the casualty? The civilians, and particularly the Meiteis. Now the question is, in the new SOO agreement also, there is no word or clauses which says about the liability. So the point is, there must be an additional point or clause where if any of the cadre of that particular SOO agreement, it is just an example, does something which is illegal or unlawful under the Indian law, that individual has to be picked up and there must be a due process of prosecution. There needed to be another stuff where if any of the organization is threatening or giving a kind of a order or instruction to a DC or SP or police or in some of our form, then the entire organization has to be punished in some form or other. If a civilian or anybody has been killed or kidnapped or whatever it's done, then the entire militant group has to be eliminated. That has to be sought, because that is what happened. When somebody kills somebody, what does the court says? Then that individual has to be kept in the jail for forever or should be hanged till death. So my second part is very simple. We as a civilian, as an Indian, cannot make an armed militia, individual or organization, to be punished. They may say whatever it is, but we do not have the ability. If the Indian government is serious about having a suspension of operation, then the obligation of maintaining should remain with the Indian government. That means the Indian government, through their armed forces, are supposed to manage whatever it is. So if something goes wrong, in the agreement, clear cut, without a iota of doubt, has to be written in clear cut letter that what is the penalty and a liability if things goes wrong, which is not supposed to be. Just like I was explaining, the new is SOO agreement has led to so many killings and death and obstruction of the state administration, central administration. The question mark is, where is my 2 point is very simple. The first one is national security policy, which they have done as a SOO, as a framework agreement, has not worked as a policy or a program. It need to be reformed almost in total if they need it to be. That is what I'm coming to the second point. If they want to continue it, it cannot continue just by modification of one line or two line. There has to be a specific section or clause where the accountability is fixed on the government of India, where there is a punitive action in terms of cost, money, in terms of life, whatever it is that need to be, just like the nuclear liability clause, which we Indian government put into the nuclear deal with the US government for all the parties. The last point I want to add, then I will hand over, is the point we are trying to say is any political party who comes as a government in the government of India will never remove SOO or framework agreement for merely for the political reasons, because they will be deemed to be saying that what is the alternative is what they are going to say. Here, I would like to add by saying an end is that the India has a policy with the China since 1962. Indian government subsequently think that let's not build any road, let's not have any army, let's not fight with the Chinese, blah blah thing. So they have avoided it, but they changed the entirety of the policy. Now we have Atal Tunnel in Jammu and Kashmir. We have recently a highway and tunnel in Arunachal Pradesh, road building network, everything has come. We have the Depsang, we have this Pangong. So that means that is what the Ajit Doval, NSA, and other party people who are in the Chinese expert in the national security kind of committees and everything has said that we have to be firm against the Chinese government, not the people, Chinese government, that we will not be bulldozed. Same thing happened with the Pakistan government, where in order to resolve these, whatever is happening, they always invite one party. We play cricket, we sign a deal with the JKLF, Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front, and many other. They are giving stipend, they are giving call, they Hewlett conference. Many things have happened, but killings and drugs and everything does not stop. Then the Mumbai kind of crisis happened because of the Abdul Guru and other things also there in the parliament attack and many things. What had happened? Indian government totally changed the national security policy. They did the surgical strike, they did the air strike, they did the ban on the businesses, they then the cricket and everything. Now we are in a different situation. So the point we are trying to say is the policy of the SOO, the policy of the framework all cannot be seen in silo. It has to be seen all together so that the collective nature of the impact that you don't eat a medicine to kill the body. You need to eliminate specifically, but if that specific elimination choice of the option kills the body, then it is the wrong. You cannot do that. For that reason, there is a requirement to overhaul the entire security perspective through which the Manipur has been seen, and that includes the Armed Forces Special Power Act, which has led to a lot of the fake encounter. Never in the interest of India. It may have been seen as a one of the options to find quick fix solution, but it has found and already proven with the evidence that it is not in the interest of India, and it is never a political mileage that the previous government has said that they are trying to do is for interest. No, the political party has to come up with another alternative, that we need a new phrase national security policy so that coexistence and pluralism and the effectiveness of IAS, IPS, administrative system is in practice, so that some Tom, Dick, Harry with a gun and just by electing their own kind of a people as an MLA and an MP can overrun and run a separate form of system in India. That should not be allowed. With that, let me end here for now.